Jeff Gamble, Indianapolis. Right here's the main manual from the John C. Maxwell team. I actually was part of, and still am part of, the John C. Maxwell team. And the John C. Maxwell team is a group of people who decided to spend a ridiculous amount of money getting trained on John Maxwell's material. He's written about 100 books. This is one of 3 books he's written. Hi, Donald. One of 3 books he's written that's passed 1 million sales. Developing the Leader Within You, which will be one of the other books we'll go over here eventually. But the 21 Laws specifically teach the 21 things you need to know how to do to be able to be an efficient leader. And when I first heard about this book, I thought it was awesome. It sounded good, and then I started reading it, and I was like, this is the stupidest crap I've ever heard, simply because I didn't have a team to really lead. So I didn't really get any of the lessons out of it. When I first started reading, I probably read to chapter 2. I thought it was stupid. I ended up closing the book and never looking at it again. Fast forward 6 months later, I had actually built a team, and then I read it, and I was like, wow, out of these 21 laws, I've only heard about 3 of them. So if I'd only heard about 3 of them, guess how well I did the other ones. Hi, Cody. Hi, Denise. Morning. Yeah, exactly. For me. I know some people are up late. Hey, Tom. So this specifically is about using the 21 Laws. For those of you who have the book, maybe you have read it. Hi, Lori. If you've already read the book, The 21 Laws of Leadership, that's going to be good. But I'm going to talk about how it applies to direct sales specifically. I have some training in direct sales. I've built a couple companies past 1,000 reps. I've been able to frontline recruit over 500 people. And when you get to a certain point, doing that, I get asked consistently, well, how did you do that? Or how do I do that? And a lot of it comes from this material that I'm going to go over today. So let's just jump into this. For those of you who don't know who Maxwell is, John's been speaking on the subject of leadership for over 40 years. He's been involved in leadership for over 40 years. He initially was a pastor of a church, built all across the country. Hi, Sherry. Built all across the country, and then eventually got to the point where he decided to kind of break away from the church, and he started teaching leadership. And the reason he started teaching leadership is he just really liked the subject matter, and he found that the majority of the problems inside of building an organization inside the church had to do with leadership. And when he was consulting with people on the outside, he realized that the problem was exactly the same. He's like, leadership has to do with everything you're doing. It has to do with your family. It has to do with how you're leading, your life at work. It has to do with all these different things. Hi, Denise. We'll homeschool my teens in our readings. Oh, okay, fantastic. So I will try to be very good, because I know this is going out to a lot of people. Sometimes my language goes trucking, military, sailor. So I'll try to keep it down, because I know there's probably people watching at this hour. Normally when I do this later at night, I have a little bit more freedom to kind of say whatever, but I'm going to try to tailor this because this is going out to everybody. Obviously, it's on a Facebook's Live. Hey, James. James actually just got this book as well, and I know is reading it. So what we're going to do is go through these lessons. But Maxwell has this amazing history of not only writing over 100 books, but he also has been able to... There's some green line there. Okay. He not only has written over 100 books, but he's taught inside of direct sales. He's taught inside of the military. He's taught inside of Fortune 500 companies. He's a speaker, a trainer, a personal coach to over 1 million people. He has 7 companies, one of which has trained over 7 million leaders worldwide. He actually is now getting asked to go in by presidents of companies or countries. Presidents of countries. I know there was a group of people from this team that just went to Guatemala. And they set up to be able to help out and share this information at a political level with everybody running the country. And here's something that he just teaches is, he said a lot of times we have problems inside of organizations because we have bad leaders. That bad leadership, kind of funnels all the way down to the very bottom, because the decisions made at the top affect everybody. So you just constantly, this is information that's needed. We're going to implement it into our team. We want our team to know this, so that way as we build an organization down, the newest person gets affected by this information. So that's why it's so important. So Maxwell's philosophy is this: your leadership is like a lid or a ceiling on your organization. And Maxwell says leadership is one thing. It's influence. He said if you had to boil it down to one thing, leadership is influence. It's your ability to get other people to do stuff the right way, not by force, not by punishment, but as he said, by influence. Influence people want to do it, which would be an interesting thing nowadays, because most of the time inside a job and most of the time inside an organization, most people teach out of fear. That's a pretty common thing. Most people will force the information. So let's go through the details of this. Okay, so here is what you can expect from the process as we engage in these laws. Number one, you're going to learn the law as an overview. And that's what I did when I first started. I read about it and I was like, how does this apply to anything? What does this matter? Second, we're going to discuss the living law of how it works in life, in business. And then we're going to lead a bunch of other people to these laws so that way we can teach them. Because you really don't know it until you teach it. Hey, Joseph. Hey, Jennifer. You really don't know this stuff until you teach it. And one of the best things to do is take a class in this, read the book, discuss it with a group of people, because you're only going to see this information at your level. And unfortunately, when I first read it, I was not in a level of comprehension where I was running a bigger organization, where I had people who were depending upon me. The higher I got, the more I had to know about each one of the laws. I thought, well, once I know the law, I'll know it. Incorrect. This is one of those books that you could read every year as you build an organization, and every year new stuff will pop out because you've never dealt with that problem at that level before. So, law number one is the law of the lid. The law of the lid states, leadership ability is the lid that determines a person's effectiveness. The lower the individual's ability to lead, the lower the lid on the potential. So how does that affect a person in direct sales? There's another law called the law of magnetism. And what the law of magnetism says is you will not recruit what you want, you're going to recruit who you are. Which is scary because who I was, I didn't have all these great traits that I wanted, but I wanted somebody on my team that had all these great traits. So what this law states is if your ability to recruit people is right here, you're probably going to be able to recruit somebody just below you and somebody just below them. These people are going to be easy to recruit. But let's say your lid happens to be a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. You really want to recruit 7, 8, and 9s, but you're recruiting 5s and below. Well, here's what will happen in direct sales. You'll get people in who don't have the ability to get people in. You'll get people in who don't have the ability to turn around and reproduce. You'll get people in who don't follow through on their payment. You'll get people in that don't show up. You'll get people in that'll give you 100 excuses, because if you're a level 5 leader, that I'm just going to say this kind of nicely, and 50% of everything you're talking about is excuses, then you're going to recruit 4s who maybe 60% about everything they're talking about is excuses, or 3s where 70% of everything they're doing is excuses. Does it really work like that? Yes, I've seen it work like that. This is one of the reasons why it's hard to recruit really good people if you're a 4 or a 3 on the level. Now here's the thing, every organization you ever come into, you kind of fit in at a different level. I thought that sucked. I was like, well, I had risen really high in another organization, but all of a sudden I come into another organization, they don't know me, these people don't know me, and what I have to do is I constantly have to climb the ladder back up to become the leader that I was in the last company. You don't start out at the exact same position. And that's another book that he wrote called The 5 Levels of Leadership. So there's actually, there's a lot of things to know. All the information is pretty simple, but it's good information. So, success without leadership. A leadership's ability, and then a leadership's basically effectiveness is what we're going to talk about. Effective, competent, or productive person without leadership or influence basically works really hard, but they're not able to bring anybody else on their team. And if you've ever seen this in an organization, all of a sudden you get this worker bee that's off on their own, and they're able to sell. They can sell your product. They can show up to everything. They can sell the product and show up to everything. And sell the product and show up to everything. And you're like, this person's so dedicated. Why aren't they succeeding? Their level of leadership isn't high enough yet. They just don't know. Hey, Francisco, how are you? So, next. Whatever you accomplish will be restricted or prohibited by your ability to lead others. When they say the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack, that's a very, very common saying inside of direct sales, but it's also super true. And that's kind of what it spells out here, is it's going to be restricted or propel it by the level of leadership. So if you think you're really good at certain things and it's not happening on your team, what you really have to do is look at your level of leadership of where you're at. What is your lid? And what I wanted to know when I first read this, and I guess I didn't get far enough into the chapter, hey Chrissy, is I wanted to know, how do I determine what my lid is? Where am I on the scale? And finally, through the Maxwell team, they actually came up with this bulleted list. So if you have a pen or piece of paper, this is the list you want to write down, and this is a list you want to evaluate. And there's basically 3 kinds of people who are going to evaluate you. It says, what is my lid number on my leadership? How do I find out the number? What you're going to do is you're going to go through this list, and it's the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. He actually broke down the qualities that a leader has to have to lead at the highest level. And each one of these qualities, what you're going to do is you're going to write a number to the side of 1 to 10. Then what you want to do is, after you do it, you want somebody close to you who does it also to evaluate you. Because we are our greatest critic, and we're also our greatest exaggerator. Whatever we do well, we think we do much better than what we do, and whatever we do bad, we don't think we do that bad. So you really want perspective by 3, 4, 5 people actually going through this list. Hi, Amy. And this list is the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. It's another book. You want to read it. You want to go through it. And what you're going to do is grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Then you're going to have somebody close to you grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Then you want somebody you've led. Somebody who's been a part of your team. Somebody who, and this may be at work or otherwise. Hey, Joe, what's happening? You want to go through these 21 laws, or these 21 qualities, and you want to know where you're at on these 21 qualities. So let's go through these 21 qualities, and if you have a pen, kind of write down 1 through 10. This will give you an idea overall of where you're at on a scale of 1 to 21. I'm sorry, on a scale total. What you're going to do is you put the total down, divide by 21, and that's going to give you what your ideal score is. When I did this, what I realized is I was amazing at 3 of these qualities, and all the rest of them I didn't even know existed, so I sucked. So here's the first one, character. What is your character? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say your character is? And if you don't know what character is, I can say it's probably not real good. Next one is charisma. So the second quality is charisma. On a scale of 1 to 10, where's your charisma? Commitment. Again, scale of 1 to 10, what is your commitment? And we're talking about your commitment level to do everything. People are like, well, at work I always show up, but at home and everything else I don't. Guys, it's across the board. This is why you want more than one person to evaluate this, because certain people are going to be like, oh, I'm great. I'm a 9. And I'm like, you're not a 9. You're like a 5. So I was like a 2. So don't worry about if you feel bad. Communication is the 4th one. Communication. How is your communication skill? And if you think your communication skill is amazing, ask your significant other how well your communication skill is. Competence. Competence, meaning you know what you're talking about. How well do you comprehend? Here's another thing. How well do you comprehend new ideas when they first come at you? Courage. Courage has to do with risk-taking. Courage. Are you the first one to say, let's go? Or are you one that needs like a year's proof before you take a step forward? Discernment. Discernment, I think, has a lot to do with timing. I know what to do. I know what should be done. But when should I do it? Discernment has a lot to do with the decision-making process. Next, focus. I read that. I was like, well, I can check 0 for that one. I mean, I was all over the place. I was an octopus on roller skates. I mean, it was bad. I was a pack of kittens in a box, like 100 different directions at once. Generosity. How willing are you willing to give? Do you have to think about giving? Or you're like, should I give to this person? What is this person going to give back to me? I mean, do you have those questions before you go do something for somebody else? Initiative. Do you have the ability to make a decision and go do it? Or do you need like 3 years notice? Listening. I just, Stephanie, how are you? Some of these I just crossed off because I was like, well, I don't have that one. I mean, I didn't even put a 0 down because I didn't even know that that was a characteristic of leadership. Listening is a characteristic of leadership. Passion. Hey, Brian, how are you? We're going over the 21 laws of leadership. We're going over the 21 qualities, indispensable qualities of a leader, and just where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10 with each one of these. So we're at passion. Next one, positive attitude. Positive attitude means what do you focus on? What do you have conversations about? Think about this when it comes to network marketing in a team. When somebody comes in and is like, hey man, how's your day? And you're like, well, I hit a pothole and the car blew up and, my dog's sick and my cat's sick and I had this surgery and then, I shaved this part of and it didn't work out. And out of 10 things you just told somebody in 30 seconds, 9 of them are negative. And people are like, but I'm positive. And I'm like, I can see that. And so can everybody else. And I just don't know why anybody won't get in this business with me. It's you. You just don't know it's you. You think you're positive. And that's why it's really good not only to evaluate yourself, but have somebody close to you evaluate you, and then have somebody you've actually led evaluate you. When you have these 3 types of people, I'll tell you what's really dangerous is go back to your original team that you sponsored and have them evaluate you. If you've been able to sponsor people. If you haven't been able to sponsor people, guess what? You need this list. The next one on the list is problem solving. How good are you at problem solving? Now, here's what problem solving means. A lot of people are like, I'm great at problem solving. Every time I have a problem, I just pick up the phone and I call somebody else. Then you're not good at problem solving at all. You don't actually stop and think, before I call anybody, what is the answer here? What should I... Here, when I have somebody come to me and say, look, I had this problem, and I looked up all of these different scenarios, and I've narrowed it down to these 3 things. Which one do you think is the best? That's somebody who's into problem solving. But every time something goes wrong, if you pick up the phone and you call somebody else and be like, hey, what do I do? Hey, what do I do? Hey, what do I do? That's not problem solving. That means you're not solving a problem. You're not even going into how to solve a problem. Hey, Dan, how are you? We're going over the 21 laws of leadership. And we're at the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader, kind of where you're at on a scale of 1 to 10. Talking about how this applies directly to network marketing, direct sales, building a team. We're in the process of doing that right now. Relationships. How good are you at building relationships? I was terrible at building relationships. Now, here's the reason I was terrible at building relationships. I was terrible at communication. I was terrible at listening. I didn't have any focus. So if you don't have any of those qualities, which is a lot of what relationship building is about, trust, I was horrible at building. I was able to do the work, but I was missing like who these people were, what they liked, what they wanted. I was kind of telling everybody that dominant personality that was like, here's what you should do. Instead of listening and finding out what they wanted and then saying, well, would you, here's a couple different ways to look at that. Do you want me to give you some suggestions? And then letting them make all the decisions. If you really want to build strong leaders, you can't be the person who's telling people what to do. Yeah, form, family, occupation, recreation, business. You can't be telling people what to do. I've met so many bad coaches, and bad coaches meaning they don't even know what coaching actually is, or at least the professional definition of coaching. So like I coach people, I tell them what to do. I'm like, that's actually the opposite of coaching. You may be a mentor or a tyrant, I'm not sure, but that's definitely not coaching. So you have to be careful who you're working with, or who's pitching you, what they're doing. So after relationships, responsibility. How well are you at following through on something you're supposed to do? Again, I tell people, 8 out of 21 of these qualities, I was horrible at like all of them. All of them. There were 3 that I was pretty good at, but I had charisma, I had power, but there was really, I was missing all the other elements of doing this. Security. How well do you provide security for your team? How well do you buffer the information, I guess, or how well do you create a sense of security for them in doing the same thing? If every time you come to them with a different idea, you're not creating security for them. What you're creating is chaos for them, because people can't build off of a different idea every time. Hey, Steve, what's up? Going over the 21 laws of leadership. how it applies to direct sales, building a team, network marketing, recruiting. So responsibility, security, we just went over, self-discipline. Yeah, this one's kind of interesting. And I got this actually from Jim Rohn. He says, how you do anything is how you do everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. So the good news is I had self-discipline in one area of my life. That area happened to be working out. I love to work out. So I had self-discipline. I went all the time because it made me feel better. When I worked out, I felt better. You know, the endorphins would kick in and everything, and you'd feel better and more powerful. So that was one thing that I was able to build off of. Is that when I looked at my life and every other thing was terrible, one of the things I had the ability to do is I said, well, what am I good at? Because there has to be something. And here's the thing. Some of you are good at the wrong things, but you're good at something. You know, some people are really good at bringing up drama. Some people are really good at being negative. You know, you're awesome at being negative. Every time I talk to you, you're negative. You know, and I have friends like that. Every time, hey, how you doing? Oh, you're not going to believe what happened to me this time. I probably am not, you know, because I've never seen anybody who's had that much crap happen to them, which is really interesting. But you can build off of things. So find something you're really good at. And I don't care if you're really good at watching TV. I'm really good at watching TV. I'm really good at eating bad. You may be really good at a lot of things, but you have to find what you're good at and say, how do I apply that to the rest of my life? With working out, it was pretty simple. I was like, working out is one of those things that, let's face it, a lot of people don't like to do, but the benefits are amazing, right? So I always looked at, yeah, but it made me feel better. You know, and I started relating everything to working out. I was like, well, I really don't want to get up on time, but the discipline of getting up on time will give me that endorphin rush of, hey, I'm doing it. It'll give me the positive feedback from the people I want to work with that, hey, he's on time. It'll give me this other so those type of things you're able to build upon. And I was able to take my discipline of going to the gym and apply that to my discipline of presenting the opportunity to people. I was able to take the discipline of presenting to a bunch of people into building relationships. Hey, this is not just a business. You need to call this person back and find out who they are, and then create a list of questions like Brian talked about. Form, family, occupation, recreation, and the message. I usually use friendly. I don't use family because some people get freaked out when you talk about their family. Hey, Darren, what's up? So this is the 21 laws of leadership and how that applies to, you know, business. The 21 qualities is what we're going over. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you on these 21 qualities? And then what you're going to do is you're going to add it all up, divide by 21, and you're going to get an ideal score, and you're going to understand exactly where you're at on a scale of 1 to 21. I was like a 3. I mean, I was horrible at most of these. So self-discipline, I really only had that in one area of my life. So, you know, how do you judge yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on self-discipline if you're only good? Here's what I did. I exaggerated what I was good at, and I overestimated what I was good at, and I underestimated what I was bad at. I was like, oh, I'm really good at self-discipline. Well, I was only good in one area, so how good was I? You know, was I good in self-discipline at showing up to meetings? No, not really. Was I self-disciplined to present all the time? Not really. Was I self-disciplined to show up to all the events on time? Not really. Did I sit in the back instead of the front? Yes. Steve, one of my friends, I don't think, not Steve Kaufman, but another Steve, you know, we would always sit in the back and tell jokes and mess around. That was not leading from the front because I was in the back, obviously. That's why they call it leading from the front. You have to be in front to be leading. The next one is servanthood. Servanthood. How well do you help other people? How well do you show other people that you're helping other people? Sitting down, walking them through, having them understand stuff. Now, we're talking about direct sales. So, you know, servanthood in general, giving. Do you show up early to the event and make sure that everything's on time? There's a guy on here, Tom. Tom shows up early, and every time he's like, what can I do? What can I help with? He's got this one down. He understands. You know, this is one that I would guess no matter where he goes, he's helpful. No matter where he goes, he tries to serve. No matter where he goes, he tries to help other people. So he's going to be really good at this one. This is one that he can put really high up. He's like, yeah, that one I got down. And I didn't have that quality when I showed up. I sat in the back and I complained. I was like, why don't these people have all these chairs at? Dumbass, you're the one that's supposed to be. If you think, well, why isn't this done? That's kind of the trigger in your head. If you're like, well, why isn't this done? that's a trigger to go help. Anytime you see something that's not right, that's a trigger to go do something. I didn't know what that trigger was. I thought that was the trigger to complain. And then I called myself, oh, I've got a positive attitude, and here I am in the back of the room complaining, not helping. Yeah, I was real positive. Teachability. You could put a sword through that one for me. I was unteachable. I thought I knew. I was like, I know how to do this. Nobody on my team. I know how to do this. How many people have you personally recruited? 0. Oh, I know how to build. Okay, what's the largest team you've ever had? 4. I'm sorry, you don't know how to build. I'm going to be real honest. You do not know what you're doing. You might know on paper what you're doing. You might know in theory what you're doing, but you obviously don't know what to do because you don't have a team. And I could have a whole nother conversation about this where people who come to me and be like, I know how to build these things. And I'm like, okay, what do you incur? Well, I'm not even in one. Oh, okay, you're not in one, but you know how to build, but you've never had a team past 4 people. You don't know how to build. And you need some help here, specifically on the leadership stuff. And I probably need to be a little bit more humble talking to you because you think you know how to build and you don't. And it's hard conversation sometimes with people until they want to know the truth. I had to hit rock bottom, and I had to have somebody punch me in the face literally and be like, Jeff, yes, you've bought the books. Yes, you've showed up to the events, but you have no one on your team right now. You've sponsored a handful of people over 5 years. Nobody's stuck with you. Nobody's coming to the events with you. Nobody's following you. Nobody's doing what you're doing because you're not doing anything. I wasn't doing anything to begin with. So who's following you? What example are you giving them to do? I was like, oh, I guess I never thought of that. And then vision. After teachability is vision. Do you have a vision? Here's the thing. Do you have a vision for what you're doing with your company? Whatever company it is. Hey, Josh, what's up? Going over the 21 laws of leadership, going over the 21 qualities of a leader to find out what is your level of leadership right now. I was telling everybody that I was horrible. Josh could probably tell you some of the impactful changes over the last 10 years, because I worked with Josh when I first started doing this, and when I first read this book, Josh might have just entered my team, and I had never heard of the 21 Laws of Leadership. I don't think I had ever heard of John Maxwell at that point. I did not know what leadership was, and I'm guessing that would be a really good person to actually go interview and say, you know, where was I when I started on the 21 Laws, and kind of compared to where I am now and my ability to do things and follow through. I'm sure it is night and day, and Josh would be an example of one of those people that I'm still friends with years later that would be able to give us perspective on all the bad things that I did and still do. I'm not saying that I figured it all out, because I haven't. On the scale of 1 to 21, I'm missing a bunch of stuff still. Even though I've been through the training, even though I know the laws and know the qualities and been through this training with John, I still don't know. So ask your closest people to grade you on your lid, evaluate it, and consider the likeness and the differences between what you thought and what other people thought. It's painful, guys. I mean, you have to have some rhino bulletproof skin to do this. Simply because people, I mean, especially if you get some people who are really honest with you, who go through these 21 qualities and they lay it out for you, and you know, you see some of the areas you thought you were good and other people do not think you're good at that at all. It is humbling real fast. Next, go back over the 21 qualities and find out where you make the greatest impact. What are you good at? Everybody's good at something. If you look at this list, some people are like extremely passionate, but they're negative. You know, I mean, you can be passionately negative. It happens. But you want to turn that towards something good. Remember, work on your strengths. But here's the thing that John said. You want to work on your strengths, but you also want to know what your weaknesses are. Character is not a... How do you say that? How do you say that? Character is not a negotiable leadership quality that you can not have. These are qualities you have to have. If you're completely weak, there's a difference between a strength, a weakness, and you're not doing it at all. Some of these things I wasn't doing at all. I didn't even understand them. So I had to look at character and say, well, what is character? Character's being honest. Character's doing the right thing. Character's building trust with people. Character's doing what you say you're going to do. Having character is somebody that somebody can believe it. That's not negotiable to become a leader. That's not like, well, I'm not really good at that one, so I don't care. I really don't have to be trustworthy or honest or on time or any of that. Bull crap. I mean, you have to be. There's no way. Character has a lot to do with trust. So if you don't have trust in an organization, you have nothing. Charisma. You know, some people are like, I'm enthusiastic and I've got all this charisma and I can speak to people. Yeah, but you don't show up on time. So that's a problem. You know, that was me. Here's the next. Things you can do to raise your lid. Value experiences with reflection. You want to look at what you're doing and how it works. Invest in training. That's what we're doing here every day, Monday through Friday. At noon every day, we're going to go through this leadership show. We're going to go through each one of Maxwell's 21 laws, and then we're going to flip over the next basically 30 days, and I'm going to go over the 5 levels of leadership and how that applies to direct sales, how that applies to building an organization and doing this. Because I'm building a traditional business on one hand, and I'm building a non-traditional business on the other hand, and I'm trying to evaluate the two and give people tips on how that works. You know, because if you have a traditional business and you're running everything based on, you know, production that has to be done every day to keep the doors open, and then you're building a network marketing business that would just be nice to have extra money, there's a trick to running both, and there's different skills to running both. So what I want to do is be able to give that stuff to you if you want, you know, to build your direct sales business big enough so you can open a traditional business. If you don't know this stuff, you won't get the network marketing business built, but you sure as hell won't be able to do it once you go over to the other side. The nice thing is if you can figure out how to build a direct sales business, it actually, and this is going to sound crazy, it actually in a lot of cases is actually harder to build a direct sales business than it is a traditional one. Because with the direct sales business, it's a volunteer, and with a traditional business, you actually have leverage to be able to fire people. You can't really fire people out of your team. You cannot work with them. You can do all the wrong things. You can destroy your credibility with them, but you can't fire them. So, coaching and mentorship. Find somebody who knows this material and say, I want help. I need somebody to teach this to me. You know, part of it is just reading, but you need to reach out to somebody and be like, look, I need to be, and this is the next one, I need to be in a mastermind group. I need to be with a group of people who are learning this, who are asking the right questions, who are growing, who are figuring things out, who are having breakthroughs, who focus. Do something beyond yourself is number 5. Reflect on who's been the lid lifter in your life. Like, who's taught you some of this? I've had some great leadership. I've had 4 or 5 people who have made amazing amounts of money inside of direct sales, and I've learned from them. Personal mentors, you know, I can name them off. Jim Richardson, Tim Klein, Casey Comden, Tim Herr. I worked with a guy by the name of John Millot. I've learned a lot from Darnell Self. Dexter Yeager, one of the biggest guys in the industry ever, was one of the first mentors that I had. I knew him through cassette tapes. That's dating myself, cassette tapes, and audios online. He's built one of the largest organizations in the world of direct sales. You know, he's currently still listed, I think, as the top earner or the top 3 earners currently. He retired in the 80s, but he's still listed as one of the top earners. That's how well his organization was built and the leadership qualities that he had. He was a little nutty, but most people who make that kind of money are. But he's still the top earner of all time in income. I think it exceeds $450 million at this point. Hey, Kyle, what's up? So that's a little bit of stuff for today. I don't want to go into any more than that. Tomorrow we're going to go into law number 2, which is the law of influence and how to get it. So I appreciate everybody for watching online. This video is on YouTube. I'm going to edit it and put it together. We're going to put it with subtitles because I actually just started working with the deaf team. Susan Tao decided to make the jump and say, hey, I want to work with you guys again. I want to put this together. So I'm putting this on YouTube so that way it has the subtitles, and that's why I'll edit the language and make sure it's clear. So I'm taping it on 2 different times, one on Facebook Live, one on YouTube. Appreciate everybody for watching. Tomorrow at noon, we'll go over the law of influence. Thank you so much.